Blog Talk Radio. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Hell is for Children. This is a show about protective moms and for protective moms. And the show is on every Saturday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. And the call-in number is 347-850-1243. And I would like to start thanking Bobby Biesinger from World Integrity News Network for providing us with this platform that allows anyone who has input on the topic of protective mothers and can think along with us towards solutions to have their voice heard. And today's guest is Protective Mother Tina Kufner, and Tina is the founder of the Melo Project Runway Program that organizes the Indigo Ribbon Challenge, which is a fashion project that supports child abuse victims. And it's my great honor to have Tina on the show today. She is an amazing, incredible, inspiring, protective mom. So let me see if she is here. Hello, Tina. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi. Thanks for having me on.
Hi, Tina. Welcome to the show. I want to let you know how much respect I have for you because you were able to transform your struggle in such an incredibly positive way. So I'm really happy to have you on. And what I wanted to start with is your story. How many kids do you have, and how did you end up in the situation you are in today?
Well, can you hear me well?
Yeah, I hear you great.
I have two sons. They're now 16 and 17, and when I lost them, they were 6 and 7. And their name is Matthias and Joseph Kufner. I'm an American that was moved and relocated to Germany, and I met my now ex-husband, father of the children, in Hong Kong during one of my business trips, because in Hong Kong I was a designer, a sweater designer, so I traveled a lot to Asia in the 80s. So that's where I met him, and then we relocated to Munich in 1991, and I started a business of a fashion analyst for the American fashion industry, and was very successful. And then one day you start realizing you're 33, and maybe it's time, after you've accomplished all your goals in your passion for fashion, I decided to be a mom, and my job kept me traveling a lot, so I definitely had to give up my career. I sold my business, which was called the Melo Reports at the time in the 90s, and I stayed home and became a full-time dedicated mother to my two sons. And this pretty much, they were born in 1999 and 1998, back-to-back. It was kind of interesting how my first was born, and then 6 months later I got pregnant with the second. My ex-husband is called Dominic Kufner. He's the son of one of the third largest textile interlining companies in the world. It's called Kufner Textilwerke. At the time when I met him, we were pretty much, even with our salaries. We were pretty high-flying. We were traveling first in business class, traveling all over the world. So we were both with our own agenda. And so when we had my company, I could have kept my company if I only had one, but he kept trying to get me to stop working and to stay home, and that is kind of something I should have started seeing as one of those red flags. But I thought, maybe I want to be a mom, and so I did eventually have to sell the company, and I dedicated myself every day. And it wasn't until, these little things, I know that what I've gone through, and I know that there are many of these moms listening right now that I've spoken personally to over the years. It's been, mine started in 2006, and it was something that I want to send a message out to everyone that's listening that does know my story. It's taken 8 years for someone to actually get me to say my story, so this is the first time I've been able to do it. I didn't want to do it because I thought, you're the first one that has ever gotten me to tell my story. Because when they've heard of it, it was almost like what they considered the ultimate worst tragedy, trauma, because it went international. And it was too emotional for me to even talk about, let alone
Mm-hmm.
go live on this. So I compliment you for getting me to do this.
Well,
My
I
code
compliment
name
you
is
for having the courage to do it. And I did see you on Bill Windsor on Lawless America on YouTube. So, and that was an incredibly inspiring video for me because you were so upfront about what had happened to you, and it's so serious. So, one of the questions that I have as you're telling your story is, your children, were they born in Germany?
Yes, they're born in Germany, but they're not German citizens. Like
Okay.
any person that travels around the world, if you happen to be pregnant and suddenly you're stuck there or you need to stay there and have your child, just because the child is born there does not mean it automatically takes the citizenship of the country that you're in. You literally have to register and get permission from the government to give that your child that's born in a foreign country a request, and you have to get approval. But my ex-husband, although he's a German citizen from Munich, he did not want our sons to be registered as German citizens because at the time all German citizens have to serve 2 years in the military once they turn 18. And he used to have such tragic stories about how much his father tried to get and pay his way and hire lawyers to get him out of it, and they couldn't do it, no matter how many times they tried. So he hated that time that he had to spend in the Army, that he wanted to not do this to my sons. So my sons were only registered in Germany, although born. If you look their names up in the registry of the German government for registrations, they're only listed as U.S. citizens born abroad. So they have their U.S. passports only. They don't have any type of documentation that says they're German. They did have a Kinderausweise, which is like a Kinderpass, which I'm not sure they even should have had that. But since Germans give money to parents who have children, I think it's 250 euros for each child is born, because of a lack of decline of childbirth in Germany, that they offer. It doesn't matter what your income is, everyone gets that money from the government as a bonus for having children. But yeah, so that was something that my ex utilized and lied to in court, was their citizenship, because nobody in their right mind wouldn't want, especially Germans that are very serious about their nationality, they could not ever think that a German father would not want their kids to have the same nationality. So he got away with saying they're dual citizens, but in actuality they weren't, which really brings down to what happened to me in my case on how he found a U.S. judge to give him custody of my children. So that's going around to the end, but that's how I lost them, was due to that one and many others allegations of fraud that was committed in the United States, actually. So here we have a divorce and a custody battle going on in Germany, which came out of the blue. Mine came in very hard and fast, so fast that nobody knew what was going on. And it was also years later that I found out how well planned it was. So my ex, actually, when I did first meet him, here's how it started. He actually told me he was raised by his father. His mother had lost custody of him and his sister at the same exact age that I lost custody of my children, 6 and 7. And that's how his father found psychiatrists to claim that his mother was not good at raising them. So she lost custody, and everything that she was alleged to be, ironically, I was alleged the exact same thing years later. So it was
bizarre.
Like history repeating itself. He said that he was sexually abused, him and his sister, by his father. He used to be taken into like hotels and travel with au pairs, and he would actually have sex with the au pair, which of course is already younger than the father. They were 16 and 17 years old, his au pairs. Some of them even went to school with him, a private Munich international school, that he would force the kids to sleep in the same room and listen to him having sex with that au pair. So I thought it was kind of weird that I'm only 26 at the time. Now I'm like 51 going on 52. that's kind of strange for someone that you never met in a business kind of format platform that would tell you that he's been sexually abused by his father and raised by his father. I thought I would never see him again. Since I was a sweater and knitwear designer, he supplied interlining. I was like, well, why is he telling me this story? But I find out from the experts that these pedophilia now have taken on a new arena. What they do now is they've learned to actually seek out women, find them so they can have children with them, so that they now can legally sexually abuse a minor, their own children.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like incest legally. So that's what, it's kind of one of the many ways to describe this legally kidnapping through the family court system, is that they found a new way of doing it where it's almost incest now being allowed, like a crime of sexual abuse to children become legal because not only is it the father, but they have custody of the child.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like they have free reign to do whatever they want.
Yeah, they're purposely getting mothers pregnant because they're planning to have sex with their children.
Right.
This also just appeared in a newspaper story in the United Kingdom, and I just posted it on my Facebook page that this is happening. Continue. So how did you end up? What ended up happening?
So, of course, let's push forward. I was in New York, and then I met him. He tells me this story. So, of course, when you go through all this, you look back and go, oh, my God, that is how they just get it off their plate. But, of course, he finishes with, I would never do that to my own children. And, of course, you having never even thought anybody could do something like this to anybody, you believe them. Plus, you think, okay, well, I'm never going to be involved with this person. I'll never see this person again in my life. But then somehow they also have a way of stalking that person out when they find someone they want to be the breeder of their children. So they go for these women that are professional, they're intelligent, they're talented, they're educated, they want good genes. So my background is I come from an upper middle class family. I graduated from Rhode Island School of Design, top of the art, came like a Harvard of Arts. And I was a successful designer. I was making very good money. At 26, I was making $85,000 a year. Then by the time I was 30, I was making. So there was nothing about me trying to, which is what he tried to present to the courts, that I married him for his money. Little did they know that I actually had the same amount of money as him, and we all grew as years went on. But because I gave up my career, and suddenly my status in Germany is a mother, not referring to my profession that I had. My status is now a mother, and that's it, which is like on the bottom of the totem pole. So suddenly you're just looked at as this woman, you chase this man for his money. And so anything you say against him is just because you want money or want this or want that. And so it's interesting how they twist things around. But what happened was, suddenly, when the children were starting to turn 5 or 6, I noticed that he never spent time with them. He was always traveling. And then suddenly he calls up. It was 2006, the summer. I always traveled to the States. I always came back to Rhode Island. My children were here with a passport since they were 6 months old. They were constantly with me. He was never around. Suddenly he was just always traveling. So that's why it became shocking when suddenly he calls from a phone booth and says, I just want to be friends. And I went, what? You just moved us out in the middle of nowhere. You moved us out to the city in the boonies with deers and country and no houses around. It was already the set of something that him and his father were planning. As soon as the children reach an age where they can start speaking and using words to describe stuff, like it was called the pee-pee dance. There was invisible friends. My youngest was starting to get scared to sleep in his own room. I brought in feng shui. He was starting to show signs of like around his mouth, like red, like blistery, not blistery, but yet like a rash. And suddenly, like between the 2004 and 5, I started getting blood in his stool, pains in walking, strange bacteria found in his stomach, which the doctors found, sores and herpes on the mouth, eye twitching, bedwetting, hyperactivity, like trauma, sticking objects in like dolls, and suddenly using adult language, and this is strange bruises. And this is suddenly I was like, what is going on with my children? I never in a million years did I think of sexual abuse. I mean, in fact, even when I started realizing that it could be, it was too shocking to even accept, like, this couldn't really be real. Yeah. And so when I started really going to doctors upon doctors, that's when they started moving fast, apparently. I did not know this because this was all happening behind the scenes. So when he said, I just want to be friends, it was New Year's Eve. Suddenly, 3 weeks later, I'm getting papers dropped off at the door in legal German language. And, of course, he wanted the household to be English speaking. And that's another thing. I may have been able to do conversational German, but my daily level of the school was in English. He went to school in English. All our friends, they were all foreigners, but they all spoke English. So everybody around us communicated always in English and not in German. So by that point, my German was really like just stale. And when you're starting to get legal language in German dropped off at your door, and you're thinking, it's horrifying. It's like you're suddenly like you're in fear. And that's exactly what started that moment. Not only did I become in fear, but we were getting stalked and harassed by private investigators. It was like one of those 24-hour shows, you know, the movie 24 Hours, where it's constant, like, this is what happened. From that moment on, that's the next 7 years of my life, was like a 24-hour show. I was either running, hiding from, you know, cars being tampered with, from retired FBI's with 4 people behind me in cars. It was starting to become one of those psycho terrors. Since we were now located in a house which is in deer country, like an old farm, like a Gundhof, we had nobody around, and it was winter. So of course the only road, the next nearest town was actually Weilheim, and their German is not even the High German that you learn; it's Bayerisch. So these people didn't even learn Hochdeutsch in German schools. They were speaking a Bayerisch language, which is so opposite from what I couldn't even understand them. And then they were also with the Clinton, I think it was Bush at the time, there was something on the television that it was very anti-American. So I had that against me as well. The moment I would open my mouth, I was getting already negative things from the people out in the countryside. It wasn't like the city people. They were more, more open and more international. But he literally had strategically placed us in an area where he knew they despised American people.
Wow.
So I had not only the language, but the locals around there were definitely not going to be assisting me in any which way possible. A very high alcoholic level of people. In fact, I walked into a police station to try to file a report. When he actually did file, and we went to court really quick, he filed I was about to kidnap my children. And suddenly that was the papers that were dropped off. I had to try to find a friend at the last minute who had not gone on vacation to translate, and I was being accused of international child abduction. And yet, all I did was just get a call. I didn't even, it wasn't even the first, I had no idea that he had just filed for a divorce and a custody. He filed actually for full custody. I mean, it went from not knowing anything to a big surprise of suddenly getting involved in a legal process that came out of nowhere, and there's no one around to help me. And everybody was on vacation. It was like the long 2-week vacation for Christmas. So he knew I would be alone. But thank God there was one family that he did not know that I knew very well that came to my rescue, brought us to their house, and then started telling me that he's filing for custody. And I was in a daze. At that point, I think he had access to the computer as well. I hadn't been on a computer. He installed the computer, set it up. He could access the computer. So everything I was doing, I didn't know anything about hacking back then or access to computers. I was totally computer illiterate. So I had no idea that he had every access. He knew every single move I made. He even had installed, before we moved into this house, he had installed cameras. And so everything we did in the house, he knew. He could see it. It was like a monitor. He could actually see from his computer. And I only know about this because after we were evicted out of the house, they had torn up the walls and took the cables out.
Oh, my God.
I had no idea I was living in a living hell of a house. He already had set up by the local land, the person who took care of the land that worked for the landlord. The landlord, specifically his lawyer, he hired. So if you hire a lawyer to represent you that also is the same lawyer as your landlord, the landlord then, that lawyer can't represent that person against another client. So who do you think they went after? Me. I didn't even sign the lease. He tried to make me sign another lease for another house. He rented 2 houses that summer. I was in the States in 2006, and I mean 5, and I came back, and he had moved us out in the middle of nowhere, had already planned on renting 2 houses, one closer to school and one out in the middle of nowhere, where he placed us, had everything done before we came back, because we were in the States for the entire summer, and he was off traveling for business. We ended up walking into that house, and that was the moment that everything was already well planned. The landscaper who drives around in this gigantic, big vehicle was already set up to watch us every move. In fact, one time we were trying to get out, he blocked us with the tractor, so we could not leave.
It sounds like a horror movie.
No, this is definitely a horror movie. That's why it was something I was not able to describe every single horrible thing that he had done to me and the children. So, and I had witnesses there. I mean, I even had a lawyer there that day that this person blocked the road, which is a dirt road, so nobody could get out. Even my own lawyer at the time was one of many. I had fired many. He also went into Munich and called every single lawyer that spoke English. He had that already done so that when I called them, they could not. It would be a conflict of interest if they would represent me. So what he did is he made calls to all the English-speaking lawyers in the entire region of Munich and surrounding that spoke English. So when I finally realized that I needed a lawyer and I was involved in a case and I would need to have a lawyer that I could communicate with, none were available.
Mm-hmm.
He also emptied out the bank accounts also and left us stranded out there in the middle of nowhere with no money. Because our account, even my business account, he had tacked on his name. And so when I was pregnant and had my second child was born, I didn't know this either. He had emptied out the bank account, closed it down. Because when I went to try to start a new business, like a children's birthday party, because I was known for good birthday parties, very American-style themes and everything, it was right when I came back into that house that I thought, well, why don't I start a birthday party with all this land around me? And that's when I went to the bank, and that's when I found out that the account had been closed, but they can't even see the number anymore. So that means it was closed at least 6 years earlier. So here I am finding out that my money is gone. I used to make $300,000 a year times 10. Imagine how much money was in there.
Mm-hmm.
So the money that was in there, he took out and used to pay all his 7 law firms to fight me.
Jesus.
So day by day, it starts and it continues to go. I'm on the computer. Somehow he's trying to get the laptop that he gave me to use, and I can't figure out why he wants the computer. I'm starting to play around with it. I can't read it. Of course, he didn't install the English version of Microsoft Word. He installed the German version, and I have no clue what any of these words mean. And so I'm playing around, and I've got my brother on the phone, and somehow there's a button, and he says, why don't you click it and see what happens? And suddenly all the icons, the whole desktop was filled with icons. And I clicked one of them, and out popped naked pictures, close-up of my children's anal, genitalia. And I must have, at that moment, I definitely went into shock. And that's when he realized, since he had access, that I had located the pictures, that's when he came in hard and fast, because I couldn't figure out why he came in hard and fast, how he would know I found the pictures unless he had access to the computer and the desktop so he could see what I was doing. You know how you start seeing, like, the mouse click and start moving and you didn't move it? That's how much.
Yeah, he had he had remote access over your computer.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I was already going crazy. So here I am not knowing about all this ability that people had over the computers. That was the first time I had been on a computer in a long time, because it came out when I had retired in 2000. I mean, I literally didn't need a computer. So I wasn't part of that big boom with the emails so much and all that stuff. I had taken that break and raised my kids in those 6 years, and that was the big boom of the technology on the computer. So I was very unfamiliar with any of this. And so that's when I was like, I wasn't there. Where are these pictures taken? Who took these pictures? And then I kept looking, and that's when the hard and fast came in. Suddenly he came to get the kids, and I'm like, why do you want to take the kids? It's my vacation. I mean, we're planning on going to our house in St. Anton to go skiing, and suddenly he takes the kids and he kidnaps them. And I'm like, wait a minute. I try to call the police, and that's when I find out that he has already called the police, the local police, and told them a lie about me. He had a fear of me kidnapping the kids to the States. Now, bear in mind, I'm clueless of what's going on. I would never in a million years think of running away, because I don't even know that I'm in a I've just entered this entire divorce. I had no idea that he was even trying to divorce me. So you can tell from that moment on, I never got help from the local police. So no, he was free now to do anything he wanted to me, and he knew that I was not going to get help but from the local police station. My name was already on file. I could barely even know what to say or how to get help. I told him that he had just taken my kids, and he hasn't returned them. He hasn't let me speak to them. Now, I've never left my children's sight, and they've never left me. He's never been part of the picture. Suddenly, he's taken the kids for a week, and I don't know where he is, and he won't tell me where he is. He won't let me speak to them. And now the only friend that was still around, she's an Icelander, but she speaks English, and their husband's German. They came out and get me. They brought me back into the city, and I was just no idea what was going on. And so they're like, you have to find a lawyer. So they brought in some friend of theirs to represent me, and he got me a first hearing where my sons, Joseph and Matthias, were brought back one day before the hearing. They looked like they were definitely with their eyes bulging out, looking shocked and traumatized. At that point, I look like that as well. I see pictures of us now. When you look at a traumatized person, their eyes are like open, like really open, and like just like glaring out into space. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly when I look back at our photos right now, that's how we looked. And so went to court. The children were heard, actually. The judge had an interpreter. The children said that they had fear of their father and that they were scared that their father would not bring them back to me. And the judge said, who do you want to live with? And they said their mother. So that's when I got him back, but that's not what then it infuriated him more. I found out this lawyer just came in, found out I had no money to pay him, told me a year later. It took me a year to figure out that I had no lawyer. He told me that my ex had walked in, that he was very convincing. All he had to do was bring a suitcase full of money.
Wow.
So I've got a lawyer who just got paid off, not to represent me. And I didn't know that this whole time, for an entire year span where I have no money, I'm telling the lawyer, I said I have no money. The lawyer's not writing anything. He's not translating anything. He actually forced me to hand over my children's passports to him, which I found out later that he had no right to do that. It's against the Geneva Convention to force any person of a foreign country to hand their passports over, their identity cards. to a foreign person. So that moment, that attorney actually violated the Geneva Convention. So we got the passports back, but he kept the Kinderausweis. And during this court hearing, the translator that they found me was a young girl who was not qualified. She had no idea about translating legal. You know, getting a translator, especially when you're in court, I was always stuck with someone, or I was stuck with someone who had no clue how to translate legal into legal English into legal German. So the whole time I had no idea what was going on. My lawyer just kept saying, just agree, just agree, just agree. But at that time, I had no idea. He was on the phone already. His lawyers were on the phone with him, and he was already not, he was getting painted a picture of me that was not who I was. So there were piles of paper constantly coming my way. I wasn't able to talk to the lawyer. I can feel my grip, something wrong, and I was panicking. My son started getting otitis media, which is his large adenoids had to be taken out. So the operation had been already scheduled before this whole thing happened. And suddenly I went to the hospital to submit my son to get on anesthesia to have his adenoids taken out. The doctors came out and the nurses, all in a panic, and said, "I'm sorry, but we can't operate on your son." I said, "What do you mean? We know that he's losing his hearing if you don't take it out." And he says, "The father just called and threatened to sue the hospital if we operate on your son." So here comes the medical abuse of a child. We were told to leave, and without his written permission, we could not, no doctor could operate on my son in Germany. So this led. So anyways, the children came home with me. I have sole custody, physical sole custody of the children from that moment that he had first alleged. But every month he was filing that I was going to kidnap my children is the reason, and I'm an American. I feed my children frozen pizza. I don't keep the house clean. We have a dog who's a puppy, and he's going to the bathroom on the floor. My kids are playing with dog stool. I mean, these are the things that I found out he was writing to the court. And took me 2 years later, or even some 4 years later, some I still don't even have translated. This is the picture he was painting of me to a German court. But yet they never agreed to give him physical custody. They gave him visitation rights. In the first year, they gave him selected dates, not even at regular, like not every 2 weeks. It was only when he knew I was coming to the States for vacation, all these trips were always planned ahead, that he started filing again that I was going to child kidnap my kids, and that he has to have custody. But during this time, you have to understand, my children were coming back more traumatized than ever, because now he's got full reign of being able to do whatever he wants with my children. And so they were getting worse and worse. The stories that they were coming back with were horrendous. The marks and it was total sexual abuse. But still, at this time, I still had no idea that it was. I'm still in the dark. I did not know what I know now that I did know then. So a year later, I'm already no money. I sell the car. The lawyer's not doing anything. I sell the Mercedes. I'm down to like a Volkswagen. The lawyer says, "Pay me." He's the one who told me to sell the car. No wonder at this point, I already knew he wasn't the lawyer when he started to tell. I didn't know about the process cost in Helfa. He should have filed and forced him to pay alimony during separation. He should have, and then the child support, 6 months, no child support. So what they were trying to do is he was trying to make me suffer so much that I had no money to take care of the kids, that I would hand them over to him because I had no money.
Or to claim that you had no money so you can take care of them.
Exactly. I knew that's what he was trying to go for. I mean, my instincts of panic were coming. They were there, but I just didn't know what I was panicking about. I literally never thought that he wanted to take the kids. I still couldn't understand, why would you want custody of the kids? You know that you're running a company. You're always gone. You know I'm a great mom, so why would you try to get the kids? I still did not know. It was because of the sexual abuse and hiding he didn't want them to say to anybody. He wanted to keep them from speaking out and telling anyone what he was doing to them. This child pornography, he would do sessions. He told me, I'm taking up a hobby of photography, but I didn't know that photography hobby of his included getting off on taking pictures of not only my kids running around, Germany, everybody runs around naked little kids, the topless beaches. It's not a big deal. But what's not normal is if a person's father is constantly focusing on the sexual parts of the organ of a child in a photograph, not only my children, but he did it to our friends' children. And that is what I found a year later. So here I am now. I started calling people who could help me, that could search a hard drive, because I couldn't figure out why he constantly was trying to get his hands on the laptop. We found out that there were hidden files in the hard drive. He thought he deleted them. I think maybe he didn't even know that you cannot delete everything on a computer. It's always somewhere there. So I found some people who did me a favor. They came to the computer. They started putting in some codes. They said, search for this, search for that. So I got really good I got very technical. I wouldn't give up on this. I'd be up all night looking. And I did find that not just my children he was photographing our friends' children, their best friends, while we were on vacation in certain places like in France or in Italy or in the States. He would always focus on them either peeing, or he focuses on their penises, or just the little kids playing on the beach. They're still babies, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That it's not normal to just through your entire vacation, that's all you see when you come back from a vacation trip with your family, is your kids naked, is not normal. So I'm flipping out now, because I find that there is not just ours, it's other children. Now I'm going into more of a panic. He claimed again when he knew I was about to come back to the States. He agreed on the operation. It was going to be at Mass Eye and Ear in Rhode Island, in Boston. I was going to get my operation, which I also held off on my right foot. I needed a surgery for mine, and we would do it at the same time, because I had my parents here. They could take care of the kids while I was in the hospital. It was one day. It was going day in, day out. My sons too, day in, day out. Not a big deal. Well, I arrived on January 30th, 2007, in Boston. Suddenly, 6 days later, I'm noticing we live in a very nice neighborhood in Cumberland, Rhode Island, where, everyone that knows everybody's there. There's no cars on the road. Everybody's in their parking, the driveway. There's a car outside. My mom notices it. And she's like, that's kind of weird. It's parked right in front in the house across the street, which is vacant. It's for years. It's been vacant. And other people started noticing too. And suddenly, we're realizing now they're in a front yard. And then when I landed, I was already a year of being stalked and harassed in Germany. He was sending me weird messages, alleging that I wasn't cooperating, and I kept saying, what is he talking about? When you're getting messages, I'm sure people out there can understand this. When you start getting messages from someone who's saying you're doing something and you're actually not, and you're starting to go, is that person losing their mind? You think they're losing their mind. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to build something against you as if you're doing something, but yet you're not. But on paper, it looks like you are. So by the time we landed, the kids and I were very traumatized. We were in such a state of shock, traumatized by all the stalking and harassing and people coming into the house. They were using the doggy door, so they were changing things around. In fact, my son woke up. They did not want to sleep in their rooms. They wanted to sleep with me. They were scared the father was going to come and kidnap them again, and they heard his father say that they were going to never see their mother again if they tell me anything. So he was threatening them. Now, bear in mind, they're 6 and 7 years old. They're so young. And they're now getting threatened by the father that he would take their mother away. And he's at the same time, he's threatening me not to say anything, or else he's going to take them away from me. Now, that is like the most control, abusive, psychopathic thing to do. And I know that all of us mothers out there that are dealing with men like him have all gone through it. So they can understand exactly where I'm coming from.
I can relate to a lot of what you're telling me, yeah.
So you got that, and you've got all these other things that they throw into the pot. You know, they try to ruin the schedule. They try to make it look like you're not following what the agenda is, and all you're doing is bending over backwards, and you know you're not in control of it at all.
Yep.
They come and go as they please. They do whatever they want. They've got the money to pay the lawyers to write whatever they want. I mean, I was being accused of all kinds of stuff, which I had no idea. I just knew whatever it was bad. And I didn't know how to stop it. We're like so helpless. So helpless. So by the time I landed, I was in trauma. I was shocked. I was psychologically terrorized. The car was tampered. It was like almost like it was trying to kill us. I mean, it was just like a living psycho nightmare. And so by the time I went, as soon as I saw the car and I felt like I was being stalked, I said, not in my own country. This is the first time I said I can go to a police station and speak my own language. So I, in a panic, I must have looked like living hell, which I did, went to the local police station in Cumberland. I brought only 3 of the 4 pictures. I mean, oh my God, there were 43 I found by then. And I still didn't know he could have access to the laptop. But my brother had showed up, and I gave my brother the laptop so he could hide it when I left. So I know they were breaking into the house. I just didn't know how they were getting into the house. But I knew that he was having people get in while we were sleeping to move things around. And they were using the doggy door. Out of all things, that we had all the doors locked. You know those doggy doors that you have like a hole in the door? That's how they were getting in the house. I never thought that that's how they were getting in, but I found out that later. So we landed in the States, Rhode Island. I'm in the Cumberland Police Department. I rushed there. My kids are in the car. I didn't want to leave there. They didn't want to leave my sight. I walked in. The police officers immediately woke. This was about 12 o'clock now at night, midnight. I couldn't handle it anymore. They woke up the family court judge of Rhode Island in the family court. They got issued an emergency custody order just based on 3 pictures. They filed a restraining order and a sole custody order. Now, bear in mind, I still have a custody order of my kids, physical custody in Germany. Now I have a physical sole custody emergency, not the final emergency, that I would have to go into the court the next day to pick up in the morning at 9 o'clock. They call up DCYF. DCYF is called in to protect the kids on my behalf by the police station. What I did not know at the time was they were not just supposed to do that. They were supposed to contact the state police and verify that they have found and confirmed child pornography and the victims are right there. They should have contacted ICE, the Internet Crimes Unit. That is what the criminal authorities are supposed to do. But it seems
so what's
like
that stands for? The ICE? The International Criminal...
Internet Crimes... the Internet Crimes Against Children. So it's ICE. But each state police has one unit that is the Internet Crimes Unit, Internet Crimes Against Children, Child Exploitation. That's it. Internet Crimes Against Child Exploitation. So of course theirs is a bit longer, but each state department has one. And whenever child porn is brought to any local police station, the first thing they're supposed to do is to contact that office and verify. Then from there, they contact the one in the government. Now I can't even think. You know, the one missing exploited children. That department we get on the phone with too. I know all of them. They've heard from me for 8 years constantly. But they are then supposed to take those images, submit them, because what that is a library. These are not the people that go after anybody. What the International Crimes of Internet Child Exploitation Department of Government is a storage bank for Interpol and state police. Like if they come across child porn, they're supposed to send it to them so they can verify whether they've been reported or not, or they've been found, to find out who. It's only a library where the police station can access. So they're supposed to have submitted that and found out if it's been located or if they've seen another child or a picture on the internet of this child. So that's what's supposed to have happened, but that's not what happened. Here I am and now I'm told that I have to find a lawyer. Now, bear in mind, I have a flight back to Germany 6 days later. I'm only in the States for 2 weeks. This is now happening the sixth day I'm there. I'm in the States. I'm leaving in 6 days to go back to Germany. His visitation rights doesn't start until I get back. So he has no access to my children, no visitation within these 2 weeks. What he had done is that he was already planning to file in Munich the moment I was on the plane. He spoke to my children en route to the U.S. He already had hired a former attorney general's attorney, 16 years, worked for the Attorney General's office in Rhode Island. So that person knows every police officer, every criminal judge. You know how well connected that lawyer is in Rhode Island. It was Charles Tomilevitz. He hired him to go to the federal district court judge, United States federal district court judge, not a family court, because he knows I'm already in there. I've got custody. So what they do is they file an international child abduction under the Hague Convention. They file a format that he's been looking for me for 3 months and doesn't know where I am. But I just spoke to him on the way there. And that he needs an emergency order to restrain me from leaving the state of Rhode Island. Now, international flights are in Boston, Massachusetts. I'm like 45-minute drive I'm in Rhode Island, which is a different state. I can't get to the airport and come back to Germany unless I leave Rhode Island. So the next day after I went to the family court, I met with DCYF. He put the kids into the he had me bring the kids. He interviewed the kids. He saw the pictures. By that point, my brother had sent the rest of the photos. I gave it to him. It was already coming in the mail because it was already a panic-stricken 3 days earlier. I already knew something was going to start happening. He showed in my sons, only one of them, Joseph, and he said my father took them. We told him to stop. He wouldn't, and because it hurts us. We thought it was a game at first. It was funny. But then after a while, he continued to force us to do it. So their integrity, their, being exposed like that is what he was doing to his children. In the photographs, you could see they were putting their hands up, trying to block the camera. They were trying to hide behind blocks. His lawyers tried to describe these 43 images as frolicking, playing. No, they were hiding.
Yeah, right.
Trying to hide from him because he wouldn't give them their clothes. And then we find out the au pair is in one of them. So there was a witness. This Alexander Keene was an au pair, an American au pair, that came in for probably about 3 weeks she lasted, and suddenly she disappeared. That was something else that happened during that year of when he had visitation, the first year. She disappeared, and somehow she was in the picture of the 43. So, of course, I'm trying to find her number. I have no idea who she was. He found her, brought her in. She disappeared without warrant. Suddenly she disappeared. She wrote an affidavit that said that he should not be around the children, that he tried to sexually abuse her.
Wow.
And she fled for her life, and she had blocked the door. Now, bear in mind, this is now my third one from her, because every lawyer I tried to bring her affidavit to, it disappeared. That affidavit never made it to a court. Never in Germany made it to a court, because every person I went to, every lawyer, was suddenly told or paid off to destroy it. They were convinced to destroy it. So we've got that. I had the copy of her affidavit. This time it was, not only certified, but registered. The whole 9 yards. It was like the third. That was submitted. And suddenly I've got these hired, retired FBI agents who now are private investigators, 2 cars, 2 men in each. They had already tapped our phone lines the moment I tried to call Germany to find out what's going on because I've been trapped here. I can't go back. One of the orders says that I have to deposit my children's passports. So we've got 3 orders issued by a United States Federal District Court judge. I have no hearing. I have no lawyer. It was a violation of due process. Everything was expedited. I'm now trapped in the United States. I'm trapped in Rhode Island. I was told just to go by the order. I deposited my children's passports 1 day before a return flight at the court clerk's office. So now, answer me, who kidnapped who?
Yep. He set you up. Yep.
I walked into the biggest trap of my life.
Yep.
I can't even go back to Germany. So all the stuff he was saying, I didn't know that he had already filed in Germany that I'm kidnapping my children and that he alleged that I filed the Hague. I did that. I didn't file a Hague. So in Germany, he's saying one thing. So at the time he's filing now, he's got the lawyers in Germany working on it. At the same time, working in collaboration with the lawyers, he brought in 7 law firms. I always say, O.J. Simpson, he only brought 1 lawyer. Why would my ex-husband need 7 law firms to represent him unless he has something really serious to hide?
Yeah, it sounds like your ex is part of a big pedophile mafia network, and they arranged all of this between the lawyers, between the German and the American lawyers, you know?
They brought in a lawyer from, 2 German lawyers. One of them flew in as the Hague expert, but little did they know he hired him to represent him. You can't bring in an expert witness that's already representing the client. It's all on court records. The court documents, the transcripts, I have them all. Whenever I bring it to someone to start reading, the moment they even get past that first meeting with the judge, with just the lawyer, and the judge even says, well, she's got to get a lawyer. Because he knows already he's violating the law. And I will clearly say it's United States Federal District Court Judge Smith at the United States Federal District Court. Because what he did to me later, 6 weeks later, I lost my kids. I never saw them again. Tried to bring them to the Hasbro Hospital. They hired a guardian at Lytham, Sharon O'Keefe, who worked for a firm. I called the firm up because here I'm looking for lawyers to represent me here. I found a local one to go to family court. Guess what? He didn't show up. He told me not to show up. Once I got trapped here, I couldn't get back. So when you do I only hired him so he could go to the family court 2 weeks later so he can get my permanent restraining orders. So I could get at least protected in Germany when I go back, and that he could be there to get my permanent sole custody order because my flight was leaving. I wasn't here on the February 19th. So I needed someone to be there to represent me. That's the only reason why I found this pro bono, cheap lawyer. He said, this is how much it's going to cost, and I'll be there. Well, with all this going on, I got stuck. This lawyer says, you don't have to be there. Well, by not showing up, I lost it. Yeah. And I didn't know that my ex had contacted him, too, and brought him into the crew on his own little crew, and he wanted someone. He was a lawyer that wanted to climb the ladder. His name is Neville Bedford. He wanted to climb the ladder. He wanted to get involved with the big guys. The big guys, you get your foot in the door. So he was such a slimy. He walked around with a leather coat that looked like Batman. The Batman movies. That's exactly, with greasy hair. That's what he looks like. And the characters that were brought in here. So the movie would be really good because everybody kept saying, you got to turn this into a movie. So you got him, that slimy one. Then I've got so I find a pro bono lawyer that I call the Department of Children's Issues. I've been on the phone with the year before. So they're already knowing that my husband's been trying desperately to get the children's passports in Germany. So his attempts in Germany for not only sole custody, but also to get his hands on the American passports, he was trying to get too.
Yep.
So they already were aware of it, so they blocked it for me already. But the thing is, so I had actually a form already in place that those passports were protected from falling into his hands. So what he did was he went around it and got an American judge, not even a family court judge, a district, a United States district, which is supposed to be a constitutional court, to issue an order for me to hand him over to them, because he wasn't allowed unless somebody, So we've got, how many laws have we broken already?
Yeah.
We got passports then taken away, which nobody in the United States has no right to do that. We've got a Hague Convention that no parent is allowed to file under the Hague unless they have physical custody of the children. He didn't have physical custody. He, at this point, had every 2 weeks, 4 days, which does not constitute any parent to file under the Hague. You can't be a parent with visitation rights. You have to be a parent that has physical custody. I'm the only parent that's filed under the Hague.
Yeah, the Hague Convention treaty gets broken left and right in all the cases that I know. So those international family court judges are just as corrupt as the American ones, unfortunately. So, yep.
Yeah. So you've got that, and then you've got the trapping. Not even giving me a hearing before you start ordering 3 orders. 1 to restrain me in Rhode Island. I can't take the kids out of Rhode Island, so that means I can't go to Boston. Taking the passports, you automatically just prevented me from flying back to the country where I reside with my kids. And the other one is allowing a Hague to go through in violation of the Hague Convention Treaty.
Yep.
So I had to force to put the kids into a school, which he used in Germany, saying, "Oh, look, she put the kids into a school in the U.S. That means that's proof that she's kidnapping my children."
Yeah.
And of course, it's again the time where everybody's on vacation. It's February. It's a special time where everyone's in Fasching, which is a holiday where no one's around. They're gone for a week because Europeans have 6 to 8 weeks vacation a year. So everything was always planned around a time when everybody was on vacation. I mean, it was like clockwork. It was like a foolproof plan that took years to do.
Yeah, it's completely scripted. Yeah.
So a lawyer woman that I had not had a chance yet to meet, she spoke English. She was willing to represent me, process costs and health, which was, pro bono pretty much. She was on vacation. She didn't know at this point with the other attorney that came in and blocked him another time right before I left, that he was alleging I was kidnapping the kids again. They were gone. They were on vacation. So his lawyer had free reign of submitting all this stuff to the court, but he did not make a copy and send it to them because at this point I legally still don't have a lawyer. Like I'm still in search. So all this time you have to remember I don't have a lawyer. I'm still looking. I'm running around everywhere, interviewing, calling people. I mean, he's doing all this bombarding with motions to courts, getting orders, and telling them I have a lawyer, but I don't. I'm still looking. One interview does not mean the lawyer is your lawyer yet. You're just interviewing. So I live in the States without a lawyer, in Germany without a lawyer here. So you can pretty much get away with a lot.
I'll stop you here for a second, and we'll take a little musical break, and then when we come back, we'll have you continue your story and finish it. My God, it's like I'm listening to a thriller or something. I'm sure the listeners are also flabbergasted as to how this is, how these international pedophiles construct their schemes. It's very educational, by the way you're telling it play by play. So, but I'll put you on hold for a little bit, and we'll take a little break, and I'll talk to you after the break. Okay?
Well, thank you.
Okay. And welcome back to Hell is for Children. And I'd like to start thanking Bobby Biesinger from World Integrity News Network for allowing us to have this platform. And we are talking today with Tina Kufner, who's describing her nightmare with this pedophile mafia, and the way the pedophile mafia, the international pedophile mafia, is trafficking these children, and the way she's been describing it, it really clearly describes what kind of script these guys have, and I hope that it's educational for all the moms involved in cases like this, and maybe these cases are unfolding for them, and they see all the steps. They can kind of listen to Tina's stories and follow all the steps as to what can be expected for them to be happening. So, Tina, welcome back to the second hour of Hell is for Children. It's been like listening to a thriller, listening to your story. It's amazing, horrifying.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
I'm just touching on the tips of the iceberg too. I'm going to get right back to just going straight to the fact that here, the next steps is what turned the clock. Before you know it, as I told you, I was going to pick them up. I was in the middle. There was a gag order issued. It's only the transcripts I found this out. I was told that I wasn't supposed to be told about this order that was a gag order, that they were going to pick up the kids. He filed for full custody now under the Hague, which is something you cannot do. You can't just file for custody under the Hague because you're supposed to already have custody. So in order to try to weasel his way to get out of the country now, it was kind of obvious when I went to these hearings that I was listening to his side, and my side was I was told not to talk about the bees, not to talk about bitches, put them under seal. Everything was hidden, and including the affidavit of Alexander Cain, including DCYF report. They wouldn't even let DCYF in. Now, here is the first time ever DCYF is on somebody's side that really needs help. It was mine. They weren't even allowed in. His report wasn't allowed. He wasn't allowed to interview the father. The lawyers protected him from getting interviewed by the DCYF, the local. They kept the police out. The police report, everything was gone. It was like all shoved away. I wasn't allowed to bring it up. So I knew at that point I was in trouble. My kids are in trouble. I'm going to lose my kids, and I went into a panic. Went to the school, went to go pick them up, looking for a lawyer, interviewing everywhere because I had fired the one that I had hired from Boston, Sullivan & Worcester, Barry Pollock. I already knew that he was already on the take because everybody was treating him with a red carpet. You already know they're already getting money somehow, bank loans, whatever he needed. They'd find something. My ex-husband always said that everybody has a price. You can always buy everybody. You can always buy everybody. I said, well, not me. Those kids were gone. I went into a nervous breakdown, hyperventilating, got rushed to the hospital. He had gone with his lawyer, took my kids, was starting to go from hotel to hotel. I didn't have a way to get to the court. I would go up to the court clerk. I said, look, I need, what's going on. I find out that there was nothing filed by my attorney that had so-called representing me when I was forced to find a lawyer that represents me in a federal court. You have to have a license, a special license. You can't just get a family lawyer. You have to have a license to practice in a federal court. Well, nothing. I see a lot of motions that were filed from the other side, but not one going against them. That's another thing. Look for that. If you've got your lawyer's not submitting anything to write against the whatever is being written, you know the lawyer's not working for you. He's not representing you because everything has to have a response. There was none responses. There were about 50 or something motions, and I had no idea that I had not received a copy of them. So there it was. Suddenly I go into a panic. My children were in a panic already, knowing that we were going to get separated. We knew it was coming. We couldn't stop it. And then suddenly he's on a plane back to Germany. I didn't even get to say goodbye. Oh, I was under supervised visitation as well. I got the supervised visitation suddenly if I wanted to see my kids. I had to pay for the supervised visitation, and they organized this outside of the family courthouse. People that were doing this were not even part of the family court. They kept even the family court from knowing this was happening. My kids came back. I never saw them again. When I went back to Germany, I tried to go because there's no order that says I'm not allowed to see my kids. In fact, I'm supposed to see my children. It would cause psychological trauma damage to them if they were deprived of their mother. Very clear. Well, when he went back, he took everything that he filed, his lawyers filed here, translated in German, and put it in the German court. So now he's got his own translation and switched everything around. I tried to go see my kids. I went to the house. I knocked on the door. Suddenly, the kids were now locked in the cellar because this house has a big glass, so you can see like the bottom floor on the side of the house. And they were motioning from the window that he locked the door. You know how you take your hand and turn it? They were crying. They wanted me. Of course, it gets me more upset knowing that my kids are going through this. He calls the police. I try to call the local police in that area. They show up. And I'm saying, look, these are pictures. These are look what he's doing to my kids. He's not supposed to, he's only got temporary order in Germany. He doesn't still have sole custody. He's only got temporary order. That means it only lasts 2 weeks, just like in the U.S. But he's acting like he has sole custody and that I have no visitation rights. So guess what? He claims I was trying to break and enter the house. So now I've got a charge against me that I have a new charge. He filed over 40 different cases against me at the same time, not just in the family court in the States and in Germany. He was filing in other local courthouses that I stole my children's money. So now he's making me look like I stole my own children's money, which you can't. And then he's filing a break-in and entering charge. Before I left the States to my house and out in the country, it wasn't a house. It was all rental. These are not owned houses. He never wanted to buy a house. He wanted just to rent. They found a bullet, a 100-year-old bullet, and it's illegal in Germany to have a gun or bullets without a license. I'm not a hunter. So I'm getting charged now. Police charges against me. All this stuff is coming out. I'm getting charged without knowing. And all I want to say is that a mother fights. For all of you out there, you know you never give up, like me. But what's happening is that they're driving us more crazier the longer we stay in this, especially when they get people to say, do a psychological evaluation. Don't do it. I refused to do it because I knew that whoever it was that was going to do it was going to write whatever they want because whoever pays for it gets what they want. People would warn me if you don't see your children soon, he's manipulating you. I knew he was doing this to them, telling them I'm a horrible person because they would be found in the hallway in the schools crying. They would tell their friends. Their friends would tell their parents. Their parents would call me. They kept saying, do something, do something. I'm like, what can I do? I was doing everything I could. But it was upsetting even the moms of their friends because we were a big group. We were hung out every day together. Our friends. We had play dates together. This was like a family. Suddenly everything was, they saw this happen to me. Mothers left Germany because of what happened to me. He wouldn't let any of my kids see their friends. No more play dates. People had said your children are not going to love you anymore. They're going to get manipulated after a while. They're going to hate you. And I said my children would never hate me. I made them a promise. They told me never give up, Mommy. And I kept to that promise for 8 years. I fought even though I had no money to fight. I ended up being evicted out of the house when I returned. I lost everything, even my childhood albums. I had nothing left. I was homeless. Here I was, multimillionaire, and I'm homeless. All our friends somehow were told by him that he wanted to leave me and I didn't want to. So they were told a story, so they didn't want to get involved. And I said, well, you don't understand. They're not helping. I'm going to lose. But they all decided to walk away, and I was alone, starting to make friends with strangers, of people that I didn't really spend much time with. So your family also drops you because they're in fear. They don't know what's going on. You find yourself alone. My children are alone. They're being told that the psychiatrists say your mother's crazy. I mean, these are what the kids listen to.
Mhm.
But he kept me from talking to my children, which gave them, all they heard was lies for the last 8 years. And now all the older moms ahead of me were trying to tell me that I didn't want to listen, they're right. My children right now, with 16 and 17, not one word from me, not because I never tried, not that there's no order saying I can't see them. It's just because he can do it. He can keep me. He doesn't need an order. He moved the kids to another location where he never registered where they were living. So when even the German police in Munich saw the pictures, now I have an entire booklet full of child porn. Not just one, not 43. I've got like over 100 now because I kept searching. They wouldn't even let me leave they wouldn't even let me leave with the exhibit book because they said it's illegal. It's child porn. I said, well, if it's child porn, why don't you go after the person who took them?
Mhm.
Well, they couldn't find them. He knew I already had gone there. So the moment I found them, I also had another nervous breakdown. I know my kids are sitting there thinking, but I think this is a strategy to keep the mother to the point where she fights so hard that she loses she completely can't even function anymore. She's paralyzed. You're stalking her, you harass her, you threaten her with court things. It's such an abuse that is so overpowering. It comes from every direction that you become so immobile. You start with the post-traumatic, then you get the post-traumatic stress disorder. You become in fear of going to a court because you feel like you're just getting attacked by everybody in there, which you are actually. And then all you do is focus on getting your kids back, and that's all you think about 24 hours a day. I had insomnia. I didn't even sleep for 3 years. I went from shelter to shelter, hiding from him, at least because I just couldn't bear the thought, and I never gave up. But I'm saying an emotional level, this is probably the worst thing that could ever happen to a human being. The children and the mother, what we suffer. And then in the end, your children somehow are painted a picture of their mother that is so exactly what the father wanted the courts to see, that the children start believing it. I mean, they're innocent. You have to remember, you don't want to believe that a parent could do anything wrong to you. You love your parents. Even though they, no matter how bad things they do to you, you still love them. That's just our nature, is to love. And if my children ever hear this, Matthias and Joseph, I just want them to know the truth. I mean, I know that you always love or you hate the person you love the most. And I know one day when they get older, because right now 16 and 17, they're going through that whole phase too, one day they'll get on their own and they may question, maybe you want to hear what your mother has to say.
Yeah,
because
I hope they find the recording to this show. Matthias and Joseph, if you are listening, please listen to your mom and find your mom and find out what the story is from her. You've heard most of it here on the radio show now, but go and find her and connect with her and get her side of the story now. And this is I'm also putting this out there for my own daughter, Jasmine, because I know that she's being told horrible things about me as well, and I hope she listens to this show and that she can hear that this is happening to other children and to other moms, and that they're all lies being told to her, So, yeah.
And you know what's interesting? He used to hate his mother.
Mhm.
And his mother, and I couldn't understand why he would never let me be alone with his mother, because I feel like it was done to him, and he fell for it. I don't want my sons to fall for it. I hope they're a lot smarter than he was.
Mhm.
That they will become their own and question things and not just believe it because they were told. That they will actually listen to their hearts because they know deep down inside that I was not at all the picture he's been painting all these years.
Mhm.
I mean, I hope to God with the internet and with all the kids that are coming out now and talking about it, and all the moms that are are reaching out, that we got to stop this. I mean, it's gotten to the point where it's not only, it's a virus. It's a global virus. I mean, there's millions and millions that this is happening to. So much I can't even count. I know many of them. And the kids suffer, but they think that they're the only ones that suffer. And like I said, they hate always the person they love the most. I want the moms out there to hear me. It hurt me. I got one message via Facebook. I wanted just to let them know, through a friend of theirs, I thought at this age I'll get a message to them that every Christmas we've written letters. I have tried through every court just to get even an order to force him to let me see them. Because he was, and it wasn't a psychiatrist that said I was crazy. It was your dad who bought the psychiatrist to write whatever. And then they didn't write what you wanted anyways. But that, moms, I know that it hurt me. It devastated me. In fact, I would never think my two sons would grow up to ever call me by my first name. They wouldn't call me mommy. I didn't raise them that way. I didn't expect them to say they don't care, especially with the years that I fought. I became a certified paralegal to represent myself, and I got very good at it. In fact, I brought it all the way to the appeals court of the First Circuit of Boston twice, and then I just stopped. I couldn't do it alone. It was a joy. You can see it online. It says, mothers of lost children. It's Kufner versus Suttle. You can see what was written up there. But I want all you moms. I know it's devastating. I've lost friends, people via Facebook friends, who committed suicide when they found out after their years of fighting. They committed suicide. They couldn't live anymore because it hurt them so much to even have their children turn their backs on them after all the suffering that they went through.
Yep.
And I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I saw them go through this, and I don't want to end up that way. So I want to be strong for my children when they do finally come to realization. I don't want them to find me in the same position that my ex found his own mother years ago. Devastated, poor, helpless, no confidence, no strength. I was determined to go back to the person that I was before this whole thing started.
Yep.
And if
Very
he
good.
could win in court, I'm going to win in my own terms, because there's something that they can't take away from any of us. They can take away our kids, they can take away our dignity, but not for long. For all you mothers out there, it's not about fighting anymore, because I figured it out. The system, the legal, if you're going to go through that, you're never going to win. You're going to waste years of your life, and you're just going to destroy yourself even faster and stronger. I decided to I never followed through on that. 2008, not 2000, what, 13, 14? It wasn't that long ago. I said, that's it. I already know it's too corrupt. I can't change this. It doesn't matter how much evidence I have, how much proof, how good of a writer I am. And I'm really good. But it's not going to help because the laws are not following the laws. So I want everyone out there to do what I've just decided to. Go back to who you were before. What was it that you did? Everybody had a career before you became a mother. You all had interests. You all had passions. You all had creativity. Mine was fashion. And I also had it for kids. I was training assistants. They sent all the RISD people to New York for me to help them prepare their portfolios for job entry. Little did I know, I was teaching the whole time. So what happened when I came? I decided to come back to the States in 2011. I had to give up there. I was told to come back here anyways because this is where the mistake happened. They can't change the American decision. I came back here also because of family reasons, but I ended up staying, and I found myself being asked to be, somehow the universe brings you back. And every moment that I spent doing something for myself that made me happy, I returned to the person I was before.
Yeah,
I'm not
that's
that
winning.
person anymore.
That's winning. When you come back to yourself and you stand up for what you want and what you start driving the car instead of it, the whole scenario being planned for you. You have no control over what's happening. You start taking control over your own life and empowering yourself again so you can be that strong woman that you were before. So when your children come back to you, they see who you really are and that you weren't broken by this corruption. They understand that all the judges were paid off, and they start seeing who is who. And at that point, hopefully, the brainwashing will be undone. And, that's truly the way to victory, is exactly what you're saying right now, is to come back into your own and build your life, right? And
yeah,
so what
I
did
see
you
too
end
many
up...
mothers.
Yes, go ahead.
I see too many mothers struggling and wasting their lives, and I keep saying, people used to say, let it go, let it go. I would get furious when someone says, how could you give up on your own children? What kind of mother would I be? But guess what? 8 years of doing this and seeing how everybody else deteriorated, got thrown in jail. I mean, the more you stay in it, the worse it's going to get for you. It's not going to help your children at all. So what I did, I started the Melo Project Runway for the youth, and it was and I did this for free. I taught 3 years indigent children that wanted to be fashion designers at the age of 5 and up. I used them to create a program that I had in my head. I spoke about it, and I turned it into reality. I wanted to prove that children, because I knew how intelligent my children were. They had Montessori. I had my own infant Montessori. I started when my children were born. I sought out the best educational system. I wanted to be the best mother there was out there. I had an infant English-speaking Montessori in my own home, 100 square meters, with everything, all the Montessori tools. So I combined everything, my background as a designer, background as an analyst, background as a teacher. I have a sister that's disabled, my abilities in the arts. I put it all into one big package because I know how smart kids are. And when a child says something, they're more intelligent sometimes than the adults because they're so manipulated by society. I trust the kids before I trust adults. And I understand them. I treat them with respect as human beings. So I proved, even to my colleagues in the fashion industry, that a 5-year-old can learn how to make their own pattern, design, and draw, just like a college student can. And it took 3 years to develop the program, and I launched the Melo Project Runway after I got a PLTI, Parent Leadership Training Institute, citation from the U.S. House of Representatives in Rhode Island. So now I'm licensed to be a voice for children. I'm an advocate. And I registered as a nonprofit, and it started from there. And now I've got 15 students, and now just recently something brought me back into child abuse. It's like the universe now says, okay, we went through this, so you know that this exists. I wouldn't have known this existed if it didn't happen to my own sons. I never would have known. You don't hear this in the papers. You think the police take care of it. They don't. Nobody takes care of this. Nobody wants to talk about these kind of things. It's just going on, and you never hear about it in the local newspapers. Somebody contacted me. They were trying to do an awareness project in the Cape. It was supposed to happen April 23rd. Would you bring your elite designers into the program where we can mix music and fashion and bring out awareness to child abuse? Well, it just didn't give my little designers from 5 and up a project to speak out, because that's one of their projects, is to send a message out to the world through fashion. Well, this one became child abuse awareness. And it kind of started with a ribbon, and it went from one, and it kind of suddenly grew, and then suddenly I'm making a piece. And I'm finding myself now happier than ever because I finally found a way to combine the two. And I launched the Indigo Justice Project, and we're doing an Indigo Ribbon Challenge to raise money because I know where these kids are abused. We have a church here that these kids go there, and they're interested in arts and fashion. Art therapy is actually very important to draw, even if you can't draw. It helped. The first step for me was drawing the first picture in a shelter. And that started me off. I remembered that I actually could draw. I mean, literally, I forgot who I was. All I was focused was on kids. And now I've got the Indigo Justice Project, which is now And we're creating the most amazing, beautiful clothes in indigo blue, light blue, and white. And we're having a fashion show on April 29th. And I'm now back out of retirement. I'm actually literally back in creating a child's collection. I'm making it all myself. Models of people and moms and people who either have cousins or sisters or they grew up in foster care. They're all getting involved. And I think that with this fashion helps people talk about something they really don't want to talk about.
Mhm. It's amazing how you've been able to transform your own suffering into a project that not only brings out your talents and your qualities and your prior education and experience, but it also brings the whole child abuse back into it, and then not just as a charitable foundation, but that you're actually working with the child abuse victims too. That's just amazing how it all comes to this kind of full circle in your life right now. And I'm hoping that's also inspiring for the protective moms who are listening to see how they can use the experience to actually help other victims. That's awesome. I mean, you weren't able to help your own children, but you're able to help other child abuse victims. And
That's
what's
right.
that like? What's that like working with the children that you work with?
For some reason, because I was able to see what my children were going through, and for some reason I'm a Cancer and I'm empathic, I'm very sensitive, so I knew something was up, but I can't put a finger on it. I'm able to relate to them. I see my sons and see these kids. They're so talented. My children were very talented too. They were very artistic. They were very smart, left and right brain. They're prodigy kids. They're all prodigy kids. And the adult parents were too. That's why we were selected by these perpetrators. You should be honored. You're actually the elite. They don't want to have genes from anybody that's seriously, these moms had something very important and very beautiful in them, and they burned out that light. They wanted that light. So I think every protective mother out there, I've spoken to many, they were jewelry designers, they were head of corporations, don't let this destroy you, because I'll tell you, you need to help yourself first before you can help other people.
It's
you
like
can't
being
be
in
a good mother when they come and find you.
Right. It's like being in the airplane and it's about to crash and you hear that message and it says, like, first put on your own oxygen mask before you put the oxygen mask on your children. And it's exactly that, right?
Right. Yeah. And these kids that have this gone through, a lot of the parents that grow up this way or have destroyed their if they don't get help now, no one's going to help them. Psychiatry appointments don't help. They have to find help within themselves. The only way to do that is to work with them on an individual level through the arts or creative, build the self-confidence. And building self-confidence does not come from words. It comes from action.
Mhm.
I mean, it's a spark that suddenly hits. You don't know when it does, but it does. And when it does, their eyes light up. And it's like, oh, my God, I did this myself. I created this. And that happy feeling inside, that proud comes inside. That's how we're going to help them. And we're going to help them, too. And because of that, they'll be the leaders for the future. We're building future leaders now.
Yeah, if we empower ourselves and we can show the children that they can also empower themselves, then we can overcome the trauma that's been done to us, and hopefully the next generation of children, the next generation, the generation that are children now, once they are adults, and this has been happening to them in massive numbers all around the world, they will be able to forge ahead where we are now pioneering in trying to stop the pedophile mafia and the abusive fathers getting custody through federal funding and whatnot. all over the world, by the way. And they can hopefully change that system for their children, right? I mean, this is in order to undo what the pedophile mafia is doing via the international court system. It's going to take a lot of effort, and it's not going to take just a few individuals. We need an entire overhaul of the entire system. So we have an important task as protective mothers to, get back in touch with our kids once we have that opportunity and explain to them what has happened and why and how, so they can go in as adults and change this from the inside out. Don't you think?
Yeah, and I want to say, too, we're the ones it's our responsibility now to break the wall. If we don't break the wall down, the younger generation can't break. We need to break the wall for them. So our mission right now is more of breaking down the walls so that when they come up, they're going to make the stand of saying, that's it, we're done. We're finished with this. We're not tolerating this anymore. But right now we're not there. They need our help. 2016 is supposed to be really coming out full force and just banging the door down. Keep banging, banging. Because we cannot change that system, the legal system. The way it's set up, it's been there too long. I mean, it started in the 1960s, and the laws are just definitely not in anybody's favor. In fact, it's less on the moms, and children have no protection in court. So my best thing is that if there's abuse or sexual abuse, never mention it. Just don't even go to court for divorce. Don't go into a family courthouse at all. Just don't go there. It doesn't belong there anyways. It belongs into a criminal court. And the moment you file for family, the criminal stuff aspect gets thrown out the window. This has to be dealt in a criminal court. To not go into a family court, period. That's the only advice I can tell every new parent coming up. But those that are in there, get your act together. Seriously, you need to now be the force. You can't help your kids. We can't. We tried. It's not like we failed. We had to go through this motion, or else we wouldn't be the person we are today. Do you understand? Like, if this never happened, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. There's no designer out there that ever comes back and does it. They think I'm crazy. The only person that says I'm crazy is doing what I'm doing now with the kids. Doing what I'm doing, teaching for basically nothing. Why? It gives me satisfaction. I'm not here to be rich off this. I want to also raise awareness about the child abuse. Those kids need healing. The only way they're going to get it is through the arts or fashion, because they do have a passion. Everybody loves clothes. Not one person on the planet doesn't like clothes, and it's like pizza. Who doesn't like pizza? So you got the two most important things that kids love to do, and adults. This heals adults, moms. They can learn to sew. Anybody can. If a 5-year-old can, I'm proving not only can the kids do it, I'm proving, too, the mothers can do it.
Exactly. Yep.
It is for the mothers. I originally started this to heal the moms. I never knew it was going to take me to the kids. It just led to this. This wasn't like planned. I'm just following along with the way it's progressing. It's the universe just takes hold, and if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, it's supposed to come easy. If the doors are locked and you can't get through, then it's not where you're supposed to be.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, that's what I'm finding out too. I've been knocking on so many doors and just getting frustrated, and that's what you see a lot on Facebook too. Is the moms are frustrated. They're even frustrated with the show. They're like, "Yeah, you're talking about it, but nothing's changing." It's like, well, the show is raising awareness, and that's changed. I mean, that if we all contribute in our own way towards being that tsunami of hope, as I call it, then eventually we will be able to break down that wall that you're describing so well, right? And the system is set up over decades.
Yeah. No, I have to say this because I do know that I get moms too who say, well, they think I'm going to come in and rescue them. And I'm like, no, I'm just one person. I'm only giving you advice for what you need to do. You're the one who's got to take action. Every single one of us will make a difference, only if we all do our part. Not one TV show, one station, one newspaper, one reporter. going in all those directions, you really think that the press is going to help you? No, they get paid by the corporations, these people that traffic. They're all one big corporation. So forget about trying to go to newspapers and get this out. Unless it turns into a movie like Spotlight with the priest in Boston, even then, did it really change anything? No. No, we need the warriors, the people on the ground. You moms are supposed to be the warriors. This wouldn't have happened to us if we didn't have a purpose for it. It's supposed to wake us up to aware that this exists. Now, what are you going to do about it? Don't expect someone to come in on a flying horse to help.
Right. That doesn't mean that the protective moms shouldn't stop fighting in the sense of, going on huge demonstrations in Washington, D.C., because if we show up with millions of moms, then that would make, that would get us to be heard, and, policymakers would have to listen to us.
But that's part of the action. Just find your spot of where you want to do. You want to separate yourself into doing this protest, then do this and do that. But it's action. It's all about action. I'm saying it's not through you alone in the court system. You've got no chance. I learned that the hard way. But and seeing everybody else go through, and all it does is, one of the moms, they put her in an institution. I had to go find her. I've bailed people out. I've sought people out. I mean, I've had to go rescue a couple. So the thing is that I say, look, don't you realize the more you fight, the more they're going to come after you. Don't think they're going to just sit back and let you just keep doing it. You've got to be prepared for that. But what you're doing for yourself, if you do something for yourself that does help you get stronger, I want their minds to get stronger. I don't want them to lose themselves. Your kids are going to come and find you. We don't know when, but they will. What do you see yourself doing when they come and see you? Do you want them to think that what their father said was right? Do you want them to see you as the person that he described? Or do you want them to see you as who you really were before this whole thing started? Take your pick. Because are they going to really? If they see you turned out to be exactly what the father intended on, breaking you down, do you look helpless, homeless, completely out of your mind already, and all you do is talk about this, this, and this? You can't, because that's exactly what the father has got the picture for. So who's winning at that point? Will they come back to you and love you the way they did? You love your kids. They're going to be really nasty to you. I have to prepare myself. I'm prepared. They're going to hate you so much. But all you have to do is remember, they've suffered even more than what you suffered. So they're the ones who need the healing. Are you going to be strong enough to heal them? Because they're going to take time to heal them just as long as it took for you to heal.
Not only that, we have to help them on that healing journey. So, and the only way we can do that is if we have been healing ourselves in the meantime. So we can not only be empathic to their healing process, but actually help them with coping tools on how to become whole again, Exactly.
It's not just about you anymore. It's about healing yourself and healing them. And it's going to be harder to heal them because they've been so brainwashed. But that's why I'm saying, if Matthias and Joseph, if you hear this, I'm going to be the same person that I was back then. I'm not going to, if you're going to sit there and throw stuff like, I hate you, you're horrible, you destroyed my life, I already got that already. I'm sure that's what I'm going to get. But I know deep down inside I didn't, and it's going to be really hard. But I have to remember, where is it coming from? It's coming from the hurt. So
it's also coming from. It also comes from their belief that justice exists, and they have to understand when they're listening that justice in the court system does not exist. It is set up to create victims, because if you hurt moms and children, then there's lots of money to be made by lawyers, by guardian ad litems, by evaluators, by therapists, if children end up, being drug addicts as a result of this, then the drug trade makes money off of you. Drug dealers make money off of you. Everyone's making money off of this victim industry. So if you listen to this and you understand this, then you have a better idea of what's happened to you, hopefully.
Oh my
I hear
God,
all
I can't
kinds of
believe
stuff happening in the background. What's happening?
I don't know.
I hear all kinds of noises in your end. I don't know. It sounds like the wall
I don't know, maybe
breaking
we got
down.
hacked. We got hacked. Oh, that's another thing. Sometimes I even hear them breathing on the other line back then. It's hysterical. Then I'm like, oh my God, wait, it is. It's a noise. It's like a clicking sound.
Mhm.
Hey.
Yeah.
Oh, now. So we're getting heard by just more than your listeners.
Oh yeah, everything's. My phone is tapped. My emails are being read. My Facebook is being screened. You know, I don't care. Go ahead and listen to what I'm doing because I got nothing but light to share to the world.
I said the same thing. It's funny. I guess after a while, everybody's like, okay, whatever. Sometimes I even say, back then I was like, well, I said, you guys are just wasting your time. Why don't you go after the bad guys instead of picking on a woman, an innocent woman? Why don't you go after the bad guys? Don't you feel bad about yourself?
They have no conscience. There's no conscience. It's like I was discussing this with another protective mom yesterday. It's like this is not so much about pedophiles against victims or justice against injustice. It's about light against dark. It's about evil against good. Really, I mean, it sounds really basic, but that's what it is.
But do you know that these adults? I hear it's like a wishy-washy sound. The thing is that each one of these people that do get wrapped up in this thing are victims themselves. Like if you look at the prisons, if you interview these prisoners, they've all been sexually abused as children. Mm-hmm. All we're doing is producing more violence in the. These kids either grow up to be perpetrators, or they grow up to be criminals addicted to drugs. They've, vandalism. These are future criminals. They're breeding them by giving them custody to the perpetrator. Yep. You're just increasing the population of more perpetrators.
Yes, it's a system that's set up to create victims. And I've explained this on my website as well. If you go to www.freeyasmijn.com, and that's spelled FREEJASMIJN.com, and you click on the tab Reflection. I actually explained this in my reflection that there is a pro-abuse industry, and this pro-abuse industry, which is paid for by people's tax dollars, is set up to steal children from their mothers in order to damage them physically, psychologically, and emotionally. Because this is how the system makes money. And did you know that in the United States alone, 500,000 children a year disappear? I mean, there's like an amazing amount of data on this page on the website. It's set up so the judicial system, child protective services agencies, the foster care system, the pedophile mafia, the pharmaceutical industry, the drug trade, and the mental health industry makes money off of this for years and years and years and years. That's what it's set up for. And mainstream media is not covering this, because it's happening through the justice system. It's happening through governments. It is judicial child trafficking, and it's not covered in the media. And this, one of the things, my only conclusion is that the reason why this is happening is that the powers that be seem to have a vested interest in exercising control over the next generation, which is much easier when kids are physically, psychologically, and emotionally damaged. Okay, so it's a matter of control and it's a matter of making money, and there's definitely a paternal entitlement agenda in all of this as well. Wouldn't you say?
No, I know. I do know this myself. You're right. I did notice that this is an intentional agenda at the highest levels to be able to control more people. I mean, you won't get the, fighting against Vietnam, stopping the war. You won't get that anymore. Here, they already do it. I was kind of shocked when I came back to the States. Everybody here's medicated, and they walk around like robotic. So I noticed a difference. In Europe, they're not under all these, labels, because they don't exist there either. It only exists here in the United States. It's almost like this is their experimental spot, because it is a very different lifestyle. The food is GMO. The kids are all getting medicated since first grade and up. I mean, an artistic child, someone who is creative, they do look up and they look like they're dazed a little, because they're thinking, they're being creative. They're visually seeing something that they're planning on drawing or something. But they're misdiagnosing that in school by saying that that they're not attention disordered. But that's a creative person. That's what we look like. Sorry. I mean, that's normal. And they, with these kids that are victimized and trauma, and that's another thing. Kids need to be heard. These children are going to school with signs. Do you know that the parents, what they're doing is just drugging them up to keep them silent so they don't act out? Kids act out because they want to be heard. Somebody's hurting them. And that's another big key of mine. So, yeah, this,
but the
thing
children,
is definitely planned.
Children like yours and mine are not going to speak up in the situation that they're in. As long as they're under control of the predator, they're not going to be able to talk about it. There's just too much fear. And, so they got to find a way to get back in touch with us, to have normal conversations about what's really going on with them, and so we can help empower them to come back into their own, and figure out a plan. And your children are now past the Hague Convention point, in the sense that the Hague Convention has no more control over your children. So, they can come back to you anytime they want. And I want them to know that.
Not actually. You know why?
Why?
What I noticed is my father-in-law, my ex-father-in-law, he controlled my ex-husband through money. So he won't let him go to college. And I'm already finding out that my kids think that I destroyed their college education because I stole their money, which, of course, I never did. But they're saying already I've destroyed their future education because I stole their money, and their dad is claiming poverty, although he's got $500 million to play with. So he played that game on me, too, about money-wise, about how we don't have the money, but it's all a lie. They think the idea is to keep control over those kids, even in the future, by money, telling them that they're not smart enough or they can't do it. He pulled my ex-husband into the business by saying, well, what else are you going to do? I wanted my ex-husband to get away from his father because I could see his father was working on him. And he said, but what am I going to do? I have no college education. All I know is this. No one's going to hire me. And that's what he's going to plan on doing to my sons. He's going to pull him. He's going to refuse to give them a college education, so he can always use it and throw it into their faces that they don't have a college degree, and they can't go anywhere but work for Kuzma Textiles.
I see.
They didn't like it when I said, well, my children are not going to decide on their own what they want to do. What if somebody wants to be a robotic maker? I know Matthias was into making robots. My children were too highly educated. What if my other son, Joseph, wanted to become something different? I was the one that was standing in their way, their plans. They didn't like hearing that I was going to let them have the freedom to choose what they want to be.
Of course not. They want to have that control. That's what I was just talking about. It's all about that control. And, so this is an interesting message for the fathers who are involved in abducting our children. You're just a pawn. It's not about you. You're just a pawn in the game of the people, of the powers that be. And, it's about the children and being able to give them the freedom to choose whatever they want to do with their lives. And so if your children are listening now, please note that you have the freedom to do with your life what you want to do. You don't have to do anything anyone's telling you. And you're at an age now that you can make decisions for yourself. So I hope you listen to the show and get in touch with your mom and find out what really has happened. And this show
Hey,
should have,
I did it.
Yeah.
I did it. I have no money. I had no money.
Yeah.
I started this with no money. So,
yeah.
I'm proving not only that I can help the kids, but I'm proving, too, to everybody out there, you don't need money to start something. You really don't. Just do it and think if you're doing something that you're supposed to be doing that makes you happy, money will come and money will follow.
Right. Yeah.
I'm serious. It really is true. I'm living proof of that.
Yeah. Well, you're a great inspiration, Tina, and I hope all the protective moms that have been listening are inspired by you the way I am inspired by you. And I admire your strength, and I admire the courage that you had to share your story today. It is truly a nightmare that unbelievable, like a thriller, like a horror movie, seriously. So thank you for being on the show. It's been a real honor. So,
Thank you for
hope
finally giving me a chance to say my story. I was,
Yeah, I mean, it needs to be heard, and I hope it will bring you and your children back together. I really hope so. So,
thank you.
Thank you so much, Tina. Yeah, I'll pray with you.
Thank you so much. Bye, everybody. Hope you guys got something out of it. Thank you. Bye.
Hey, good luck with the Indigo Ribbon Challenge and the Melo Project Runway Program. And if my listeners want to have more information about that, they can click on the link to this show and find the links to Tina's website underneath the show. Thanks so much, everyone, for listening. And I hope to have you all back as listeners next week when we come back with Hell is for Children. Bye-bye, everybody.